discussion of strategic communication in many of our professional and academic journals remains organisation-centric, top-down, and open to description, potentially as post-communication. For example, a very recent journal article states narrowly, and I quote, "Communication needs to serve the overall strategic goals of a company," even more narrowly to a company, "and help fulfill its mission." The authors go further to argue for increased alignment of communication with organisational goals rather than a broader engagement and relationship building with stakeholders and publics. As recently as a chapter in the upcoming Encyclopedia of Strategic Communication, a new book coming out with eminent authors, a number of PR scholars say that strategic communication professionals are, and I quote from the early chapter, "charged with the support of organisational thinking and action." Now, to me, this leaves no room for counselling organisations to alter or change thinking or actions. I don't know about you, but I know quite a few organisations that might want to think differently and change. It shows that strategic communication, despite what we say, is often put in the service of power and elites. It shows that the claim of boundary spanning is what Kant would probably call an unwarranted pretension of merit. It renders claims of dialogue, engagement, and relationships, of course, hollow and unrealised. When I look at social media, despite the underlying design of social media as interactive and social, and the considerable hype about concepts such as PR 2.0, my research inside many organisations disappointingly found social media is still predominantly used for distributing the messages of the organisations. And I know this has been found by a number of other researchers in the US as well. The Organisational Listening Project found that on average, 80% of all the resources devoted to any form of communication-related activity, and I didn't just look at public relations, it looked at social and market research, public consultation, complaints processing, correspondence, stakeholder engagement, public relations, internal organisational communication, and social media use. I looked at 8 functions, and we found that in some cases as high as 95% of the resources and time in those functions was devoted to distributing the organisation's messages, in other words, speaking. When organisations do listen, it is often instrumental. They listen in order to gain answers to the questions they want to ask, or even more often to gain insights to aid the targeting of audiences and consumers. And of course we do need to do that, but if we are to facilitate true communication, dialogue, achieve engagement and relationships, my argument is that we need to balance the brutalist architecture of speaking that we have created, and to also balance that with an architecture of listening, a set of principles, standards, procedures, as well as resources, technologies, and skills for organisations to pay attention to consider the views of and be responsive to stakeholders and publics. Not necessarily always agreeing, but at least being open, dialogic, and prepared to adapt or to act.